So let's start off at the top. Hannah, introduce yourself. If you want to say either where you're from or what you do or anything, a little bit of personal context, that'd be great.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is
But
Hannah, and I'm American. I am actually a full-time investor. Before that, I was working in tech. I worked for Google for, across three continents over a good 5-ish years. After that, I did a unicorn startup. I didn't do a unicorn startup. I was part of a unicorn startup for a while in fintech, and then I just decided to try something different. And that's about 3 years ago, kind of when WebStreet started.
Right. I believe from the notes that I've seen before and some of the interviews that we've done with you, you met us through a convention, specifically through Empire Flippers. Can you explain why you invested in alternative investments, and feel free to use whatever language you want, digital real estate, online businesses? Why did you invest fractionally instead of buying your own business?
Sure. Actually, I did both. So I heard about WebStreet through Empire Flippers because I acquired an asset through Empire Flippers. So I was getting some of the marketing materials. I heard that they were trying to do some kind of passive investments related to online businesses. So I was very curious about it. At the time, I was also just starting to learn about this space as well. So I kind of wanted to try a two-pronged approach to begin with, just so I can really understand the industry and the market. Um, and I much prefer WebStreet over acquiring my own businesses.
I'm going to ask you for follow-up on that. Why do you prefer fractional ownership of online assets over acquiring yourself?
I think that for my goals, I would like my investments to be predominantly passive, now exclusively passive. And acquiring a business was really just for me to understand enough so that I'm not getting um, swindled. So I know a little bit more about what I'm investing in. So I did take some time. I acquired an asset. I had a business partner who was a developer, and she helped me to run this asset. It was predominantly passive on my end as well, but it let me see kind of end to end the acquisition process, the due diligence, running the operations, having to deal with all sorts of partners, link building, and all these things. Yeah, so I got enough of a taste of that where I felt comfortable moving predominantly into something like WebStreet. The fractional ownership was important to me because as I learned more about the industry, I understood that the only way for me to be successful in this industry and generally is to be incredibly diversified. So I felt a bit of Google updates going up and down, and I wasn't kind of going into the game of building my own diversified portfolio. I can't get into those on my own, acquiring those kinds of assets on my own. So pooling with other investors was very attractive for me. Yeah, and I tried fractional ownership in a few different things. So Empire Flippers, also things related to NFTs and real estate. So yeah, that's more along the lines for my goals.
I'm going to ask you to elaborate a little bit upon your phrase, I couldn't get into diversification on my own, because I don't know if everyone understands that. And I think that that is a specific pain point that we solve that everyone's not aware of. So could you elaborate?
Sure. So for me, I cannot build a deep enough skill base across the various monetization methods, across ads, e-commerce, SaaS, Kindle publishing. I, as an individual, cannot keep up to speed at the depth that I would need to feel comfortable investing on my own, one, and then number two, the hurdles, because we know at the lower acquisitions costs, it's incredibly volatile. So I really like this fractional ownership and the assets that are being purchased. It's not just flip little things here and there. They're actually successful, continuously cash flowing businesses across these various monetization methods. So that was really attractive for me.
Great. Hannah, you mentioned about how the businesses that we acquire at their size are being volatile, and you're right. would you speak to one of the things that makes the lower priced digital assets that we acquire interesting is the lower multiple, right? Like we're buying assets at a 2 to 3, maybe a 4x multiple if the market's up, but normal private equity, you're acquiring things at 5, 6, 8, 9, 10 multiple at some point. So if you team up with a knowledgeable team that can compensate for the volatility of those smaller assets, it's amazing, but it also, you can get in at a lower price. Is there anything around that you understand that you feel comfortable speaking to?
Yeah, and actually by me saying a lower price, I was actually referring to when not pooling with other investors, the lower price assets are much more volatile. Whereas with
Okay, perfect.
Right. Whereas with WebStreet, yes, there's the benefit of the lower multiples because there's the deep expertise, not only with Empire Flippers, but with the other brokerages that you guys work with. So that is obviously very good for me as an investor. Second of all, I like how the incentives are very much aligned, that there's no salary being paid out to the operators, that the operators are have to put their own skin in the game, and then also are making money when investors make money. So that was really important to me as well, because I looked at other things. I looked at other things too. I looked at even some of those operators directly, like Black Book going directly, and also on Folio, and just a bunch of different things. I feel that the expertise and the diligence that WebStreet has, purely from also, coming out of Empire Flippers, gave me the confidence. And also, whenever you guys do the updates, I watch them all. I don't seem to be able to catch the exact timing, but I watch all of the recordings. I watch all of the quarterly reports, and you guys know what you're doing. So I have a lot of trust in the diligence process, and also in how you're managing the operators.
Right. I want to ask you to elaborate on your words right there. You know what you're doing, and if you feel comfortable, say WebStreet knows what they're doing. But what I want to touch upon is that you've invested in every single round, which is every single type of monetization. And I'll refresh your memory in case you feel comfortable using any of them. You've invested in FBA, you've invested in content, SaaS, Kindle Direct Publishing, content agency. So what is it about, like WebStreet knows what they're doing so that you trust the full diversification of the portfolio?
Okay, so first of all, I've invested across every single round, every single monetization method. This includes ads, e-commerce, SaaS, Kindle publishing, the whole gamut. And the reason why I've done that is because WebStreet knows what they're doing. Coming out from the original partnership with Empire Flippers, I know that there's the deep expertise purely from the knowledge that the Empire Flippers team has gained as one of the best brokerages out there. And then also with the expertise from the industry, other brokerages, the connections that you all have. I watch every single quarterly report. I watch all of the investor calls. And so the knowledge and the skill that's coming out of WebStreet, I see it through all of the interactions that I have. Even working with the operations team, Kyle, Aaron, whenever I have a question, no matter what it is, I get a response right away. It's the detailed response, and it is actually answering my questions. So that I really appreciate as well, and that it's being run well from the diligence to operations. Also, even though in the last round, most of the funds weren't deployed, this is actually a good signal for me because the standards aren't being lowered, even though you have this pool of money to invest. So the high standards of the diligence process is really important to me.
And I feel like you're leading this interview better than I. You're touching on things that I wasn't even thinking about. I hear from investors, because I see everybody's reply in HubSpot or into our inbox, about how thankful they are when we don't deploy all of the investments just because. But I haven't had anyone say it yet in kind of an exploration process. So let's go back to that. And if you feel comfortable, elaborate a little bit around that in your words. Like, I always hope that WebStreet's going to deploy all the investment, but when I get a reply back that it's not, it makes me trust them more, or the reasoning around what you were just saying. I love that.
Yeah. Okay. Whenever there's a new funding round, I'm really excited. There's a lot of diversity in the monetization methods and the type of businesses being acquired. What I really appreciate as an investor, though, is that my money is being deployed for the right assets and with the right standards of diligence, because sometimes all the cash isn't deployed. And that actually gives me more trust in WebStreet, because I know that the standards for diligence are not being lowered.
Wonderful. I want to talk about your expertise, because I think somebody who comes from your space, working with unicorns, your space coming from tech, is a huge, I feel internally from the team, I've heard from Mike and Aaron and Kyle, having you as an investor is a great sign that we're headed in the right direction, because you understand the importance of online assets. So could you speak to how your background, your professional background, made you trust online assets, and that's why you invest in this space? So it doesn't have to do 100% with WebStreet, rather you understood this space maybe as early as we did.
Sure. So I had worked in big tech for quite a while, big tech and small tech, including a unicorn fintech startup. So I know the trends and understand the direction of online assets, digital assets, and I can also differentiate when the business is high quality or not, and the business model is high quality or not. So all those things put together made me comfortable, because I obviously did a lot of diligence on WebStreet, along with other online business assets, along with other types of business models and investment opportunities. And when it comes to the online asset space, I put most of my trust into WebStreet.
Hannah, how do you describe WebStreet to friends and family? What are your words?
I tell them that it's a way to get into online businesses without necessarily having the depth of technical expertise, and becoming very diversified in the different monetization methods to be successful investing in online businesses.
Great. How has the user experience, the investor experience, our communication with you improved since you first started investing with us, making it easier for you to understand what we're doing, the due diligence, making sure that we're choosing, the right monetization places, making sure you understand where your cash yield is coming from?
I'd say, first of all, it already started very well, with the level of follow-up, with the level of communications. I think the investor calls are really helpful, and they're consistent, and Mike and everyone and the fund managers take the time to answer questions, make you feel comfortable with their investment strategy. That's been great from the beginning. And I would say some of the improvements that I'm seeing, the dashboard, absolutely, because sometimes I just send random questions to Kyle and Aaron because I just can't remember. I'm like, well, how much did I put in? Like, what are all the different methods? And they have to kind of send me an email with these things, which they do right away. But the dashboard allows me to see with clicks of a button where I am, all the funds that I've invested in, the different operators, to be able to click rather than having to go through all my emails to find the quarterly reports. I can easily access the quarterly reports. So it helps me keep up to speed with my investments in WebStreet, and I really appreciate that.
Well, I have another question, Hannah. The majority of investors that I've spoken to, I would say the two things that make them love WebStreet in particular is the quality of the portfolio managers, and then the relationship between WebStreet and the portfolio managers. When they do a little bit of due diligence in the portfolio managers, not only do they realize portfolio managers have 5, 10, 15 years, 10, 20, 30 assets, 5, 10, $30 million of experience before they work with us, but they want to work with WebStreet because of the complementary relationship that we have of doing the due diligence, bringing the deal flow, helping them with different types of the industry movement. Is there anything about the portfolio manager that you can speak to that's interesting to you, whether you like to come to each round's new launch and meet them and hear from their own words, or that the videos that they send out quarterly, anything about the portfolio manager that you feel comfortable?
I'm actually really impressed with the portfolio managers that WebStreet selects, because it's important to me, again, the depth of expertise and the track record. And I love seeing that. When I see these portfolio managers, they have 5, 10, 20 plus experience in big tech, also running their own portfolios and running them well, having very successful exits. So this gives me more confidence. Every round, it gives me more confidence. And I like to see the repeat fund managers coming in as well, like Mohit and others that, and obviously they're repeat because they're happy with the partnership with WebStreet and the investors. So that's been really important to me. And yeah, and again, the fact that incentives are aligned, because I want the fund managers to be focused on their business and what they're doing and not having to deal with investor calls and having some help with the due diligence and the deal flow, and all of that is only going to help them as far as running their business and running it well for themselves and for the investors.
Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks, guys.